Judge Arthur Engoron has ruled that Donald Trump is going to owe, in the New York civil fraud lawsuit, $355 million. And that is just for starters, with interest that could well hit $400 million. And a number of other people in his orbit are gonna owe money. A number of people, including Donald Trump, are gonna be banned from participating in businesses in New York. We're gonna give you all of those details. But before we get into those, in addition to the monetary penalty, I wanted to give you a quote from the judge who said this about Donald Trump and the other defendants in this case. Their complete lack of contrition and remorse borders on pathological. Defendants are incapable of admitting the errors of their ways. And that is a quote from Arthur Engoron on this case, but I also think it nicely summarizes like this whole time in American politics, the whole Trump thing, the MAGA thing. Write that someday on the gravestone of Donald Trump and that political movement. But they wouldn't admit that they were wrong, and that remains true after this verdict has come out. We're gonna have Donald Trump as well as his lawyer, Alina Habba's reactions to this, so stay tuned for that. But first, we want to give you a little bit more information about what actually happened. So they did this exhaustive survey of the Trump organization, its finances, the way it was valuing properties, and they found a number of different problems. So between 2014 and 2021, they estimated that Donald Trump overvalued his assets by just a little bit. $800 million to $2.2 billion, which obviously has massive implications on things like taxes and insurance and ability to get loans. So later on, when we go to Donald Trump saying that it doesn't matter that he's done this, just bear in mind, that is not a small thing. He didn't kind of break the law here in terms of fraud. He broke it about as thoroughly as anyone, at least in New York history, ever has. So kudos to Donald Trump on that. But we want to get into the penalties. They're large and exhaustive. And in addition to the financial penalties, the Trump organization is going to have to obtain prior approval, not as things are now, subsequent review from Judge Barbara Jones, who's been an independent monitor of the organization for some time. That's gonna go on for 3 more years. So to try to stop them from continuing to misrepresent in epic fashion the value of their assets, they basically have someone who's chaperoning them as they continue on kind of as a business. So a little bit embarrassing there. And also, on top of the $355 million for Donald Trump, Eric Trump is gonna have to pay a little bit over $4 million. Donald Trump Jr. is gonna have to pay more than $4 million. Alan Weisselberg, former, I believe, CFO of the Trump org, is gonna have to pay $1 million. And there's obviously consequences beyond that. But I wanna give our panel a chance to jump in. So Francesca, I'm gonna start with you. This is about as high as anyone thought it was going to be. What are your thoughts?
It's a good day. And look, I think it's wonderful that Donald Trump is, arguably he's been convicted of his favorite kind of crime, white collar crime. We all know he loves the whites, right? And so he's got it, there he is. And I also find it so funny that every single step of the way in this trial, they screwed themselves and made themselves so unlikable to the judge. They did everything the judge asked them not to do. Even in the closing arguments, hey, don't turn this into a campaign speech. That's exactly what he did, and Donald Trump was shut down. Hey, lawyer for the defendant, don't go outside and start squawking to the media about how this is a rigged trial. All of these things got you to that figure of, whatever the $54 million, and then some with all the interest. And then my favorite part is the implications, which is he might have to sell off his property, right? And no one is gonna be buying Mar-a-Lago for what, $1.8 billion. That's what it's worth 10 times that. So they said it was between 18 and 28 million. That was the Palm Beach County property appraiser. And he said it was worth 1.8 billion. Nobody, it's not. I am very excited for the, the Cameo accounts. Heaven forbid the OnlyFans accounts that are to come.
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can be the difference maker, because we just need 1% of our audience to be paid members, and then this show can be around forever. So you can make that difference. Click join now.
Yeah, I think on that note, I was gonna say $354 million. How many digital trading cards of himself with abs is he going to have to sell to the rubes to cover that? You know what I mean? You got to fire up another grifting campaign. Not that those ever stop. You know what I mean? But I really appreciate that quote from the judge about it being a pathological inability to accept any kind of responsibility or admit any wrongdoing. Because like you said, John, that does kind of sum them up. I mean, I don't expect that to stop now, even after this. You know, I mean, if the defamation trial is any indication, he's probably just going to respond to this with even more fraud. I mean, like, you know, his response to this fraud guilty verdict is just going to be doing a bunch of super fraud, I assume, and hopefully he will eventually get taken down for that too. It's also kind of, it's nice because I feel like people who hate Trump have been saying for a long time, you know, that he was full of it when it comes to his business acumen and how it's overstated. Like, you know, his fans, that was part of their whole thing from the very beginning. Like, he's a great businessman and maybe this country needs to be ran like a business. And detractors were like, but he's really not, though. He's sunk casinos. He's lying about how much money he has, you know, and they've been beating that drum for a long time. So it's nice to see like a court, the judicial system, vindicate that stance or sort of, you know, illustrate that for the public. I know that that's not going to matter and they're not going to hear it or buy it, but still, I appreciate it.
They're going to pay for it, though.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's certainly going to try with those NFTs of him with abs and riding a lion or whatever. They're definitely going to try, but it's a lot of money. Look, with interest and all that, and by the way, he has 30 days to either put up this money or get a bond for the money, and obviously there's interest on those bonds. So this could be $400 million. E. Jean Carroll could be $100 million. $500 million is a lot, even for a guy who pretends to be a billionaire. That's gonna hurt him, and you know the penalties against some of these other figures are far lower, but you know, $4 million for Don Jr., that's certainly gonna cut into his travel fund. And by that, I mean, it's gonna be harder for him to hit the slopes, I think is how they talk about his hobby. The slopes, the snow, the powder. I think he likes skiing is what I'm gonna say. But anyway, in addition to the money, let's just quickly go over the fact that this does have consequences going forward pending appeal. Obviously, they're gonna appeal this like they appeal everything. Good luck to them. So there are gonna be consequences on their ability to participate in businesses. So Donald Trump, Alan Weisselberg, Jeffrey McConney won't be able to serve as the officer or director of any New York corporation or other legal entity in New York for a period of 3 years. So it's not a permanent thing, but it's a few years. Donald Trump and the Trump Organization and its affiliates won't be able to apply for loans from any financial institution chartered by or registered with the New York State Department of Financial Services for a period of 3 years. Which I think based on the last few years means they just won't be able to be rejected for loans for the next 3 years, but they can't even try. And Eric Trump and Don Jr. they're banned from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation or other legal entity for a period of 2 years. So theoretically, they won't be able to, you know, lead up the Trump Organization. But I'm not too worried about them. Obviously, with their expertise and their business experience, they'll be able to be hired on as a CEO of some other company in some other part of the country or the world. I mean, they're international businessmen. They earned their positions. But anyway, of course there will be appeal, and they're going to try, by the way, while the appeal plays out. They're already previewing a motion that would suspend the bar on them serving in these positions, Donald Trump all the way down to his kids, so that they would continue to be able to head up the Trump Organization while that goes forward. Any quick thoughts about the non-monetary components of this?
It doesn't feel like it's long enough. 3 years, like that is plenty of time. He's still gonna somehow be relevant, whether inside of the White House or outside of it, or inside the White House forever. I think that what sucks about this case is that it is compounded with every other criminal case. Like, I just wish he could focus his crimes on one thing or the other, because this truly is the one that he cares the most about. And it's the one, to Trey's point, that his base should care the most about. Like, if they think that he's some wildly successful businessman, no, he did that by lying. He got the loans to then make his investments by lying. Of course, he would sort of laud it and say, that's what anyone would do. And, you know, that's just called good accounting. No, it's called fraudulent criminal accounting, and you got caught for it. But the fact that it comes like again with everything else, the election interference and Jan 6 and the classified documents, people can't keep their head on straight about it, even though I think this is the one that the MAGA base should care the most about.
I agree, you know, about it being too short. I was definitely hoping for more on that front. Although, yeah, you know, as you were saying, as you were alluding to, John, the children, Trump Jr. and Eric, they'll be fine, if not for the CEO reasons you named, but because this court did not ban them from doing drugs and shooting endangered species and launching into
Or just
cocaine diatribes into the digital ether. You know what I mean? Like they could still do the things they love the most. So, I think they'll find some way to soldier on.
They're probably okay, yeah. Yeah, and look, we have to be fair. Obviously, as you can tell from the last 12 minutes, we're very fair people. We're gonna get Donald Trump's response in just a sec. But before that, I do wanna say, and Francesca alluded to this with wanting him to focus on his crimes. There are a lot of different crimes and a lot of different trials and all of that. Like the hush money one popped up again this week. I didn't even know that was still a thing, and this is my job. I just follow this every day. But that said, we're not gonna get justice in all of them, okay? That's clearly the case. We already haven't in some areas. But as depressed as I always am about American politics, I mean, you can literally see in my face the damage that all of this is doing to me. I'm very glad about the two that we've gotten justice on so far because symbolically, they really cut to the heart of some of the things that have always bothered me, and I think a lot of you the most about Donald Trump. This really summarizes, you've gotten away for decades basically entirely lying about your brand, your abilities, your success, you as a businessman. One of the main pillars of Donald Trump is that he's a good businessman. He's not. He's a fraud and a con man, and he always has been. And now he's been hit with one of the biggest judgments for like a company of that size in American history. So that should cut down that pillar of who he is. And E. Jean Carroll is really the other one. It's his bravado in thinking he can do whatever he wants to women. He can do whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants about them. He can assault them and then spend decades lying about it and get away with it. Except now he can't. And that cuts down the other leg of who Donald Trump is. He's been hit on the false business bravado and the virulent toxic misogyny. There's just one or two others remaining. If we can get him on January 6th, that's kind of one of the big ones, his lies about democracy. And it kind of feels like there should be something about Barack Obama's birth certificate. That one's still sort of lingering back there. He's probably gonna be fine when it comes to that. But I am very glad about these two. It feels almost like justice.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.